Hello, dear all. I'm just coming out to speak to all of you, thanking you for everything, for being there for us, for being there for Efraim, for being there for me in the last 7 days. Today we just now finished Shiva, and I just want to address a few points, speak a little bit for those that ask questions and reach out to me, and I'm incapable of kind of at length answer and reply to all of you in private. So here I am, I'm going to share a little bit of what went on in the last week and what went on right before Ephraim gave over his soul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was an unbelievably powerful experience for me. So I'm just going to share some insights, some realizations, some emotional transformations that I went through. And maybe it will be beneficial for some of you that just maybe recently lost loved ones or long time lost loved ones but didn't know how to address it or how to go about it. And here some of this information might help you to process, because actually unprocessed, lived through emotions, they're waiting for us. They're there on hold. They're there on standby, and it's unbelievably important for us to process them. So about a week before everything happened, Ephraim just called me and said, I really want to speak to you in an emergency way. And I couldn't put things together because I was already exhausted from everything that's been happening to him last few months. It was intense, one thing after another. He had 3 strokes, and he was not able to speak at one point after 1 stroke, and he was not able to turn around by himself. We had to assist him. I had to find someone for the night shift, and during the day I was there. My kids were there, so it was intense. So I couldn't understand what he was saying, rush home, because he was speaking fine. And Ephraim was finally kind of letting go in a way. Yeah, he said, that's it, I'm ready to let go. It looks like I wouldn't be able to make it without those intense painkillers. And with the painkillers, you don't know who you're talking to, what you're doing, and how to address things on a clear head. So I guess what he wanted before he started taking the painkillers, he wanted to just conclude on a clear head and just said, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to close my eyes. And I thought that minute something is going to happen, and then it occurred to me that it doesn't happen like that. The body shuts down slowly, and it was just on his mind. For Ephraim to say something like that was outrageously contradictory, outrageously not him to say that's it, yeah? And of course we called his parents, and we spoke to his parents, and the parents were handling it well. And then we spoke to his friend from Jerusalem, and that friend said Vidui with him and said Shema, and said it doesn't matter when it happens, you just need to be prepared. We all say Vidui and Shema because we don't know when our moment comes. So we said it all, and he was just there listening. And from my previous kind of education and knowledge that I learned in Chassidus and Kabbalah and Gemara, at this stage, even not due to painkillers, a person starts seeing either deceased relatives or dear friends that they lost, or somebody very pleasant. It says that specific energy comes and surrounds a person. So me and Ephraim's friend started asking, do you see anyone next to you, around you? Do they communicate to you? And he said no, he doesn't see anyone, and was like, well, like, it's not time yet. And between us, after the whole conversation was finished, was just said maybe at least a week. And sure enough, it was exactly a week when it happened. Ephraim didn't want to go to the hospital till basically the last moment. We called Hatzol a number of times, maybe 4 times, maybe even more, I don't remember anymore. When he had strokes, when like we didn't know what to do, and he was not breathing well. Sometimes it scared me. He developed last week, he developed this cough that he couldn't cough it out in a way. So each time we called Hatzola, and Hatzola wanted to take him to the hospital just for extra oxygen, just for a little bit of IV, because he was not eating anymore. So he each time refused. He wanted to stay home. And partially I just want to share my insight here. I was holding space for all the kids, for myself. It's a first experience that I'm losing a loved one right in front of my eyes, and I'm responsible, so to speak, just to hold the space. And I have little kids, I have older kids, I have different ages that I didn't know how they will react in case I'm not right there, if anything happens. So it was challenging to fulfill his will, that he wanted to stay home till the last moment, and to kind of be fair to everyone and myself. So I just gave it over to Hashem. I just said, you know, as much as I'm not prepared, I have no idea what's going to happen any moment. You know you know how do things gracefully, and it's true, like with Ephraim's passing, with each stage, like at first he wasn't able to walk anymore or even stand, like that was taken away, and kind of I buried that interaction with him, right? And then there was another interaction where he was not able to do other stuff, and then he was not able to speak. I remember when he was unclear in speaking that week, I would just listen to his voice notes on WhatsApp just to hear his voice. I was missing his voice, his real full-on voice. And kind of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God decided to take little parts at a time. You know, like we buried his voice, we buried his movement, we buried his ability to leave the house. It was all like done so gracefully, so kindly, so to speak, you know, and I was very grateful for that. And then he had a whole group of friends come over Saturday night, and they were dancing, and I'm sure you saw on Ephraim's thread, I was recording it and singing and creating some nice positive atmosphere around him. And that evening he kept on saying, I have hard time breathing, I have hard time breathing. He kept on calling me to the room, and I kept on saying, I'll send everyone home, let's go to the hospital, you'll get oxygen. And he's like, no, I want to stay here, but help me breathe. And that was like 1000% Ephraim. He would ask for something, I would offer a solution, he would refuse or completely think of a different way, and we'll leave it at that. You know, like dealing with Ephraim on all levels, it was very similar to what happened last few days, last few weeks, because he had a certain expression, certain consciousness. That specific shine that he was shining into the world did not really care to be understood much or to be evaluated like humanly balanced way, you know, like he was shining a certain energy, and the main thing was that he was shining it. He was expressing it, and it didn't have to make sense, it didn't have to be approved or valued. It was just shining, and that's exactly what was going on. The same thing happened with his cure. a lot of people were saying like, oh, if he would have done chemo full on, if he would have done radiation, you just have to understand who Ephraim was. He wasn't here to do, so to speak, like norm things that everyone was doing, you know. He was shining specific light, and it most of the time did not make sense. Sometimes it did, and sometimes it was very settling. But most of the time it didn't make sense, and that's what he was about. He was about that. Just specific derech, specific approach, specific expression, specific kind of understanding only made sense to him, maybe to few others, and that's how he wanted to go through the process of taking care of cancer, taking care of his spiritual journey, taking care of his marriage, taking care of a lot of stuff. Like, I remember Rabbi was sitting down next to me and said, like, I told him a number of times, do you want everyone to feel bad for your wife and your kid? Like, is that exactly what you want? Because the end is known if you don't do chemo. Like, that's what made sense to a rabbi. And he said, Ephraim just smiled with this beautiful smile, and he said, I have nothing to worry. And Binyamin is born, and Miriam is a great mother. So what made sense to others, Ephraim looked at exactly the same situation with completely different, through a completely different lens. He didn't kind of appreciate regular looks at things, and he was living that. So going back to technicality, what happened was Hatzola came again when he was not managing his breathing the whole day, pretty much the whole Sunday. And he sent them back. And then towards the evening, like at about 10 or 11 in the evening, I just couldn't go to sleep. I had somebody come over for the night shift so I could sleep. And I just see like he's not responding. He's not like there. He's trying to cough it out again, but he's not really. So I called Hatzola again, and they all came. Like, we had about 8 cars outside our house. And the main guy that they were all waiting for, he's like, he's done, but he's breathing fine, but on all other reads and levels he's done. Do you really want me to do all this and like put the tube through his throat and get the oxygen going and take him to the hospital? I said, for sure. And it finally was up to me. So we rushed to the hospital. Sure enough, by 1 a.m. he came back to consciousness. He started shouting, and one of the last sentences that I heard clearly from Ephraim was, stop being so polite. I think that's number one reason why our souls kind of came together, and we both gave each other some insights, some learning experiences. One of them was for me to kind of not be as polite as he would call it, and as nice and as considerate. His goal was to teach me how to like break in, how to be able to ask for help when I need, how to be able to bother people, how to be able to kind of like enforce or impose on people something that is important to me, make them do stuff for me or make them do stuff for themselves. Like, that's completely not my nature, but he taught me that till the last minutes. So he kept on like saying, get all the nurses here, get all the blankets. He was really cold. And we understood at least that he's like speaking somewhat. He's able to think straight. And doctors over there in the emergency room took me to a side, and they just said like, he has maybe a couple of hours or maybe a day maximum, and over here in the emergency room it's not going to be the right care. So he was already on hospice. This whole hospice experience was like something constantly conflicting energies in me. Like, I was constantly, and he was constantly feeling like, should he be on it, should he not be on it? On one hand, he needed all this minimum help that they offer, but on the other hand, this whole energy, it's like a giving up kind of system or organization, giving up vibes, you know. Something like it felt from the minute they brought in the bed in the house back in August. like we felt that like heavy vibes in the house. So we were always conflicting, and he never wanted to go to the facility. We never even checked out the hospice facility. Whatever happened, their services, whatever minimum they were able to do, they came to our house. So hospice was like 5 minutes away from the hospital that he was brought in, and I agreed that he should be taken there. And whatever he has left, couple of hours, couple of days, a day or something, I'll just be by his side. So they brought him in early in the morning, and he was like taken care of like I would only dream of. You know, he was washed properly. They have all the facility how to take care of him, and like took care of his wounds and dressed him properly, and they tested all different painkillers which would be better for him, because morphine didn't work on Efraim. Like, we were scared so much of this morphine throughout the whole hospice. Like, they kept on saying, when is he ready to take morphine? When is he ready to take morphine? But at the end, morphine didn't even kick in. It didn't take away the pain. So they adjusted the painkillers. And like, last 2 hours that I looked at him, he was really in such a dignifying place, like on a body level, because he was constantly suffering from the fact that he's not washed properly or taken care properly or changed properly, or he refused at one point to put the stoma bag, and it was like all over leaking, and I was there to help, and nurses occasionally were there to help, but it was still not like a care, right? But that was part of Ephraim's wish. He wanted to be in such a like mix and a discomfort and in somewhat like suffering mode. Yeah, it's part of the breast of derech, like a tikkun, full-on tikkun derech. And as much as I was able to like put my thoughts aside, and my ideas and my wishes and my preference, I did. Like, however he wanted to be taken care of at home, he was. And here he was, like, in bed, just somewhat taking care of his pain and his discomfort, and he was washed, as I said, and there was like powder and like all the creams and everything there. Like, they took maybe 2 hours to get him in that place, and I just saw like a menucha on his face on some level. And of course they're coming in and out, and like he knows it's a couple of hours. And I said to him, I said, Efraim, I want you to tell me if you want to say something to me, and like if you want to talk about anything, and if you want to speak to your parents. Back in the hospital, I asked the same thing, because I had no idea if we'll make it to hospice. It took time for hospice to come get him. So he said he wanted to speak to Rabbi Posner, his first shliach that Mekaraved him in Boston. And I said, Efraim, it's 3 a.m. And he's like, stop being so nice, he says to me. I reached out to Rabbi Posner, and sure enough, Rabbi Posner right away responded, almost right away. And they spoke, and then he spoke to his best friend in Jerusalem, and he spoke to one of his parents, the other parent. The line was not connecting well. But he spoke this whole week to everyone, and he nodded, and he accepted, and he forgave, and he loved everyone, and he was, as much as he was exhausted and tired and in pain, he was there to let go on a very beautiful level. So we didn't know it would be days or hours, and sure enough, it was only 6 hours. And I remember like a week before, when he decided to let go, I asked him what I should say to Binyamin, and he said, tell Papa tried, and Papa fought, and Papa went to the best place. And that was like really crucial for me to hear from him, because this is what his Papa wants to hear, to say, and this is what's gonna happen. Interestingly, that night when he was taken to Hatzola, Benjamin never wants to fall asleep with the light. He actually likes a completely dark room. And since that night, he wanted a little bit of light, like from a next room. And it stopped maybe like a day ago. He said, turn the lights off. Like he processed in his own way about Benjamin. I'm going to say a little more further. So sure enough, Ephraim was completely awake, completely there. Occasionally I was switching his legs. His legs constantly needed movement. I needed to like from one position to another. And like one breathing in, one breathing out, and he let his soul go. But like that moment, that few like hours that I was there waiting for Hebra Kadisha in the room, something also outrageously like insightful happened. When right before, like a month, 2 months, whatever, we knew it's happening, even a few weeks, there was a lot of love and goodbye and thank you and appreciation and don't worry and we're all going to be in a good place, you there, we're here, and like all that was communicated all the time, like non-stop. But the moment his soul left his body, it wasn't a fear, it was a very peaceful place. In fact, I felt more peace from him than before. It wasn't fear, it wasn't like a scary kind of reaction, but it was very assertive, very clear to me that this is not Ephraim. It's like talking to something that belongs to Ephraim, like talking to his shoe, talking to his shirt. It's still very connected, but energetically, I right away felt this is nothing to do with Ephraim anymore. It belonged to him once upon a time, and it wasn't a mental realization. It was like on a heart level, like I felt it. And like it, I realized that we look at people and we think we're dealing with bodies, like her, him, she, they, and like we refer and we kind of always address only on a body level, but really all we deal with is only a soul. It's like it was so clear to me that there was only a soul there. There was nothing there but a soul. And this was just a vehicle. Like you hear these words a lot, maybe in like a Tanya Shir or you hear from different people, the idea of a vehicle for the soul, like our body is a vehicle of a soul. But over here, it was like a deep recognition of that. Like you really understood, like, it finally made sense to me. What it means. It's nothing but a vehicle. It was only a vehicle, and it's not coming from a place where you kind of look down at the body. Body is super important. The vehicle is super important. Without that, the soul cannot function here, accomplish things here. But it was just very clear that if I really want to tune into Ephraim, he's still in the room, his soul is still hovering above his body, and talk there. Like I got this insight, talk more to his soul, because it's no longer connected or not as much connected to his body. And that was like a huge realization. And then the rabbi came and the Hebra Kadisha came, and the rabbi was very gentle to me. It's like, step out, you can't look at those things, you have to go out, you have to leave the room. And he was joking a lot, like to relax me, to calm me down. And as much as I was preparing myself last few weeks, the experience of first 7 days, nobody could ever prepare. That's actually one of the things, one of the first time Hatzola came in when he had his first stroke. One of the Hatzola guys said to me, you have to be prepared, you have to be strong. This could happen any minute. And actually Ephraim overheard that, and then he spoke to me like, what did he say to you? And I remember telling him that I'm not prepared now, and I guess God will give me strength when I will need it. He will give me at that moment. So that was like also another insight. When we want to prepare our close ones when they're going through similar thing, there is nothing that could prepare them. It's only God that gives them energy to go through what they need to go through. And this specific energy for this grief, from this loss, to recover, to kind of cry out, or to question if you need to feel sad if you need to. All that comes with the specific energy that you're given for this process. So there is no way a person could be prepared. Like mentally maybe, but emotionally and we cannot ever be prepared. So what I went through, the feelings that used to like come and go this whole week, and it's just like 1 minute you say to yourself, he's in a good place, he's finally in the best place, he's finally where he actually always wanted to be, like all this wishes that he had, ultimate healer, ultimate Rebbe, ultimate derech, like he was always looking for this ultimate, the best, like he would say, number one healer. I'm looking for number one healer. And it occurred to me, he was sending a message that he wants to be done here. He went to the ultimate world, to the ultimate healer, to the ultimate spirituality in a way. And this is where he wanted, his soul deeply wanted that, not because it was wrong or right. That's how our subconscious was communicating through his consciousness. But at the same time, my human part outbursts with like emotions and loss and maybe fear, maybe strange sadness, and that also had to be expressed. And thank goodness for Shiva, for people that came, people that called out from me all those feelings and made me talk and made me explain. I thought, I even spoke like a few days before the whole thing happened. I spoke to a rabbi and I said, I probably will do bare minimum of all the Shiva stuff. I know myself, I heal much better alone. Maybe I'll take walks in nature, and like I'm not gonna sit like they recommend. But let me tell you, this whole process of people coming or calling in or dropping by, that for this specific process was outrageously important for me to just like be able to speak it out, to take it out of me. So I thank everyone who came, who stopped by, who reached out, who spoke to me on the phone, who came in person. I can't thank you enough. It was really, really, really important. You know, like some people asked me what I feel, how I understand where the soul goes after, and like how long does it take. And as much as I learned, as I said, it's all intellectual, but now I feel it's true what I learned. Some of the parts really make sense to me, and I'll just explain how I learned it, how I understood, how I spoke to Efraim about it, how we processed this together, how he kept on, like before he broke out and he said that he is ready to go. Like I used to cry by his bed, I couldn't hold it anymore. I was just like begging him to tune into his soul and just to check in exactly what it wants. Does it want to truly go, or it just like got sick of this world and blah blah blah? And he would just turn to me and would say, Miriam, you have mental illness. How much could you think about death already? You know? So, but that was Ephraim. He never let you like get stuck in something, you know, like for too long. Yeah, there is a process, but you don't get stuck. So he asked me once, like, what did you learn in Chassidus and stuff? And I said to him in a very simple ways, I said, before the soul, like from what I learned, before the soul decides to come here, the process is explained like that. It's like out of spirit, out of like God, so to speak, is born a specific soul, whatever that means, for this specific reincarnation, with certain movements that this soul wants to go through, certain truth or certain talents or certain expression that this particular soul wants to go through. And it's like placed in a specific kind of energetic area by the spirit. Spirit gives birth to that soul, and that soul is like finds itself, and then it's left alone, so to speak. It's left to find out how to adjust on its own until it calls out for help. It's like leaving a baby crawling and like stepping aside and observing, paying attention, paying close attention, but not bothering until a baby just turns around and looks for an adult. So in a way, it's an expression of what happens when the soul initially makes the movement towards the earth, towards this reincarnation. So it's left alone, and then it's looking for support, for someone to fall on, for someone to rely on. And at that moment, we are given a specific spirit. Some people call it an angel that surrounds and supports and escorts and follows a person till the last day. Some people call it another neshama that actually went through similar stuff that this person is going to go through, that has more experience, went through a lot of similar ideas or similar experiences or similar kind of lessons, right? And we are assigned with that mentor, older brother, older sister soul, right? And then there is a process of preparation before the soul actually is ready to come here. There is a lot of explanation that says that a soul chickens out. Yeah, it's taught what is going to be down here, and then it says no. I prefer like going back to the source, going back to the spirit. It takes a lot of determination for all of us that are finally here to want to come down. So once we are already in the body, once we're already reincarnated here and we are downloaded, so to speak, our consciousness into a body and the physicality of this realm, it took a lot of trials, it took a lot of preparation. And to be checked out so quickly is not as easy from the physical world. So once the soul is already here, it forgets all those additional mentoring souls that support and surround us. That's part of the game, so to speak, in this world, that we have to remind ourselves that we have support and we have all our resources that we need, and we are guided and we are led, and there's no mistakes, and it's all part of the process, and most of the difficult stuff is what the soul chose. Like, we forget all that, and we feel kind of we are again those babies alone in the room without anyone watching, anyone looking after, anyone providing care and love. So it's part of the game to forget that. And it says clearly that before the time comes, like the soul goes through whatever lessons it was planning to go through, whatever it wanted to download into physical realm, whatever talent it wanted to like fixate on a physical level, whatever a certain movement of consciousness it wanted to download here in a specific variation or specific version. It's usually done within like first 45-50 years, and the rest of our life is given like for us to enjoy what we did. So most of the lessons and heavy duty kind of like betrayals and losses and like unfairness and all those lessons that and love, like unfair, experiences with love, like you love and you're not loved, or you were not accepted as you wanted, or you were betrayed, or blah blah blah, all those lessons, the soul wants to come and go through that. And it's usually packed in the first half of our life. And then we kind of want to get grounded with what we brought into the world and receive our rewards for what we gave to the world through that expression, through that experiences that we had. So whenever the person is ready to go, and whenever the person is ready, felt that they did what they were here for, that mentor starts appearing, starts showing up in different versions, right? It sometimes comes as in the image of a parent that was deceased, or a guru, or a teacher, or an important, maybe a spiritual leader, or somebody who was dear to you. But also it could come in its own version if a person is educated enough and like knows what's flying. But interestingly, also I was telling this to Efraim in our like short, brief conversations together by his bed, when I was giving him a little bit of tea and a little bit of food. I was telling him there is an interesting law upstairs, so to speak, yeah? They don't mix in unless you ask. Nobody, like on a human level, people run to help. Sometimes you don't ask, they like want to help. They want, oh, call this person, they will help you. Oh, you have problem with I don't know, insurance broker, I have a good one. Oh, you have problem with healer. Oh, this person got healed through that healer. Like we rush to help, right? This is like part of the program that we are downloaded here as humans. But upstairs, there's like ultimate freedom of choice. In fact, the love that these mentors have for us, and God ultimately has for us, is that we wanted to go through certain experience, whether it's painful or pleasant. They want us to go through it fully, as much as we want to experience. They stand back and they don't mix in unless we ask. So it's important to know that they're there and they're available very quickly, very very openly, very abundantly. You know, they're very resourceful. They're there. They have everything. They have all the resources. It's just they're waiting for us to ask. And when we ask, we have to be careful not to just ask in random. Oh, I need money. Oh, I need a soulmate. Oh, I need, yeah, because you don't know who you're speaking to. It's specifically important to just say, my guides, my mentors, I'm calling out to you. I know you're there. I know you've always been there. This is really tough right now. I need your help. And when we ask, we have to make sure. That was a tough one for me, because I had to make sure to leave Ephraim's free choice to himself. I could only ask for myself, from my personal experience that I was going through in this whole mix. I had to ask for myself, not to mix him in and say, oh, heal him, make sure he stays here longer, look, he has a 3-year-old son. None of it I'm allowed, so to speak, to mix in. I'm not allowed to mix in my son's karma. Who knows, maybe he reincarnated to leave a process of losing that so early, and this is very important for him. Who knows why Ephraim needed to be checked out as early as 53-year-old. It's none of my business. I could only ask for my personal experience, how I want to live through it. And when you call out, and you call out specifically either to God directly, God Almighty, it's really tough. I really need guidance. I really need clarity. I really need strength. Or I need this specific amount of money, or I need this specific explanation or understanding. You get answers right away. And I told this to Ephraim. And I said, Ephraim, when I step out and you're alone and you do a lot of meditation, just call out and connect. It will be so much more peaceful for you when you know you have someone to call out to, and it's It's always there, and you'll see how quickly you'll get your answers. I don't know whether he did it or not. I never checked with him. I wasn't his guru or teacher, but we just, like, as friends, we shared those things. And it says clearly, when the soul goes up and it's time, this specific spirit or soul or whatever it is, guide, gently and very, what's the word, was a lot of love, and it was a lot of patience and consideration, just like settles the soul in a new environment, from one place to another, from one realm to another, and just settles and settles, and they, so to speak, interact a lot, whatever it's like, speak a lot, if you could call it speaking. And they say, oh, you wanted to do that, remember, and you did it, like, really in a very kind of comforting way, and you accomplished so much. And that's what I noticed a lot of rabbis did last few hours. All they wanted to speak to Efraim, Efraim, you did so much. You wanted to get married, you got married. You wanted to find your ultimate spiritual path, you did. You wanted to have a baby, you had a beautiful baby. You helped so many people. Like, this comforting talk to a soul, it actually explains that's exactly what happens when it leaves its body. And that's how it settles slowly, within 7 days, and then within 30 days, and then within 11 months of mourning. And that's how it slowly transitions. As painful as it is for those that are here in human bodies, it is extremely painful to separate for the soul, as they explain. So it's recommended not to visit the gravesite for all 11 months, and only for one day when you need to kind of put a monument there. It's also recommended not to gaze or go back to the picture form, like picture or voice of the persona that carried that soul, or the persona that expressed that soul, because it's we want to try to help the soul to kind of separate and apart from that existence that it just had, and just go to a different realm of expression. So when we light the candle, I used to recommend to people to put a photo right by the candle, but then I learned that it's better not to. Maybe later on, when things are settled, it's good to have a photo in the house, especially for Benjamin to grow up with the photo. And I'm gonna go back. Maybe I'll record more insights that come up, like in a more natural way for me. But just want to conclude with one thought. It was on my mind for a long time how to address Benjamin. I mean, he's a very smart boy, and he shows a lot of kind of preparedness for what is going on here. Like maybe a month ago, I noticed that he was compensating, replacing Efraim. Like, Efraim is there, his dad is there, but he's bedridden, he's not taking him to woods anymore, he's not taking him to park anymore. So the child was trying to control it in his own way, and he was like overly controlling with some people, like one of my daughters or one of the teachers. Like, he would just not let them move, didn't let them go out like from the room, or didn't let them drink or be on the phone, like superly controlling, right? So I had to get a consultation with a psychologist, and sure enough, he said, the way I evaluate here, he is a 3-year-old boy, but his mind functions on a 7-year-old. His speech is a 4.5-year-old, but his whole body is a 3-year-old capacity. So his whole like physiological system. So he basically said that back like a month ago, and I actually told this to Efraim, we spoke about it. He said, as a 7-year-old, he's like, I get what's going on. I'm going to, you see this like a slot for a dad. I'm going to put someone else there and like make that slot be filled in. So like for 7-year-old, he was trying to do it on his own. And obviously when he pushes someone there, he doesn't get the same result. So it was backfire, and he was not like, he was irritative and like expressed a lot of discomfort, and like even if they did what he wanted to, those few people that he's trying to control, he did not get satisfied. So on this energetic and like insightful level, this specific therapist that I approached said, I'm going to speak to his subconscious and I'm going to say something. And that was really precious to hear. He said, your dad can never be replaced. You could substitute later on with like important teacher and a guru and a saint and a trainer and like another dad or and a stepdad or anything. Like people could try to substitute, but I'm just speaking to your subconscious that forever, as long as he is alive, his dad's physiological dad, biological dad, place is always be taken by him. Whether he's in this world or in another world, it's always just this one persona, whether he remembers him or not. So he just like kind of ordered, don't try to replace or put someone there if you don't see any functions going on. Just admit and create peace that this is only one place for one person or one soul or one expression. And right away I felt like some movements there also when he was saying that. And then he said, that part that you're missing on a physical level to receive from your dad, you're going to learn to get it from the world. The world has endless resources. You're going to get this from the world, knowing that your dad place is filled in with him, and you always have your dad there. Whether you could speak to him or not, he's always resourceful there for you. He's always available there for you. But on some physical level that your person doesn't get satisfied, doesn't spend time with dad, doesn't have this hug, doesn't have the kiss and the smile, you just know that the world has that available for you. And whatever he did energetically, it created calm for him. It just created certain like gathered Binyamin. Like for the next few days I noticed that right away he was like making sense. We had back and forth conversation, and like it was like movement there instead of just like rah, you know. So that was a month ago, and right before it happened, like I didn't know, is he gonna ask me too many questions? Is he gonna demand an answer? How am I gonna address it? And I spoke to Ephraim's dad. Ephraim's dad, from what I was told, is one of the 10 top psychologists in Massachusetts. Plus, interestingly enough, he himself lost his dad when he was 5. And plus, he's talking about his son, and he's talking about his grandson. So to me, it meant like he has this vast psychological insight. He has this emotional presence. He has this mental presence. He went through it himself. So he led me through this unbelievable kind of step by step how to process when Binyamin asks me. Interestingly, Binyamin only said, Papa is in the hospital already 3 days. And it wasn't like a question, it was a statement. And after that, he just didn't say anything, and I'm kind of letting it go until he is ready to speak. But what Ephraim's dad suggested, he said, number one, you only tell the truth. Never cover it up. Never say something like, oh, he's in the hospital recovering and he's gonna get better soon and blah, 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 right? No, he's like, you're gonna tell the truth, and that's what he needs to hear, and he has a whole lifetime to unpack that truth. And you're gonna go extremely slow, and you're going to see his reaction of his body language and his eye contact and the words that he's responding or not responding, withholding. You're gonna go extremely slow, and you're gonna pause and wait, and maybe you'll go in chunks, but you definitely want to give the truth. And the way he suggested, he said, say it like this. Say, last time I saw Papa, he was in this facility called hospice, and he was not in pain as much. He was actually very comforted. A lot of doctors took care of him and made sure that he is not in pain, to the extent that he was comfortable, and they washed him and they dressed him in a comfortable clothes, and he was in a very comfortable bed, and there were pillows around his legs, because he remembers that the legs, last few weeks he was suffering a lot with like leg movements. He was really swollen. And I was right there by his side, and he was speaking to me, and even like rolling his eyes like Efraim did, and he was reacting with a smile. And then he died, and he said, say those words, just say, and then he died. And his understanding of he died and my understanding of he died are completely different. And then he said, then you could just pause either before or right after you say that. And then don't make up stories that he went to the best place and everything is absolutely good there. And he's like, just say, and I don't know what happens after people die. And that's also an important insight on a human level, to not know. We could assume, we'll learn from some sources, reliable sources, but on a human level, we don't know. We only know what happened right before. We only know how it happened. Was it a lot of suffering or no suffering? Was he asleep or awake? But after that happened, we don't know. But we know for sure he loved you, and he still loves you, and he was always lit up when he saw your face coming into the room, and he was always asking about you, and he's constantly, he always wanted to hug you, and he only wanted to be around you. And now he is among dead ones. And just leave it at that. And he said, maybe when he's 7 or 5 or 4.5 or just 3.5, he'll come back to that, and you will tell him again the same story. Maybe he'll ask you one more question. Maybe he'll ask you 5 questions. But this core truth is just going to stay there, because he says when people lie or try to sugarcoat it, it leaves a lot of resentment feelings, like you didn't tell me the truth, you lied to me, you didn't tell it to me in the right way, you told me something that you didn't know yourself. He's like, always make sure that it's truth and only things that you saw and knew. And that left a lot of comfort in me, and I think that's what I'm going to go by and stay by. And obviously there's much more to unpack and to share. Tell me if you're interested in all that, and if you want to hear more, my personal experience, my personal understanding, how I communicate to the soul of Ephraim. If I do, this is also something new for me that I picked up recently. Only if I'm in a very kind of I wouldn't say happy, but very comfortable state of mind, not like, oh, why this, that. I could tune into Ephraim's soul when I'm absolutely comfortable and peaceful, not made peace with the element of I have no other choice but make peace. No, truly, honestly, he needed to go. It was the right time. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a bad luck. It wasn't bad stars position. It wasn't a foolishness. It didn't happen accidentally. It was not supposed to, none of that. If you kind of look a little bit higher and just say it, his soul knew exactly the hour and the day of his passing before it reincarnated, and you kind of create that conclusion, that feeling of completion, and you carry it inside. It's you could build a connection, and it's a very unique kind of communication, because it's very, fast. You kind of, before you even ask a question or address certain thing, you already feel the answer. I don't know how to communicate it, but the more I discover, I'll communicate with you. Please share this video with those that you think it might be beneficial for them to listen to, or to hear, or to go through some processes that I address here. I love you all. We'll be in touch. And living, supposed to live, and we're supposed to look at our grounded kind of surroundings and pursue and enjoy and grow into something next in this world. And we should only communicate with those that left occasionally. Mostly we need to communicate with our guides, with our guides and mentors, and seek for help and advice and understanding from them. And just clearly say, I don't know, but I know for sure you do. I need clarity in this. And leave it at that. You could write it, you could mentally say it, and leave it at that. And you will see how much comfort and answers you will receive. I love you all.